Hey homeowner, so you're selling your home and at the same time you have to purchase. Now whether you're relocating, upsizing, downsizing, whatever the case may be, I understand how stressful it can be. You know, I've helped clients and we've done it a ton of different ways, and that's why in today's video I'm going to be sharing some of the best ways to do so. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. Alrighty guys, so one thing I do want to mention is that there are various ways to do this. Now I have experimented with some and I do prefer some over others, right? Each one has their own advantages and disadvantages. Now there are a couple in here that I am going to mention that I haven't tried, but I'll be sure to let you guys know that way you could do a little bit more digging on your own and see if that process might be right for you. So jumping right into number one, the first thing is going to be a contingency contract. And essentially what this is when you're going to purchase the home, you're submitting an offer, but also stating that that offer and the purchase of that new home is contingent upon you selling your first home. So I don't have to dive too deep for you to understand that, you know, why that can be a negative thing, right? If you are a seller and you're looking at two identical offers, but one is contingent upon the sale of another property, it's gonna look a lot weaker, right? There has been times where that's worked for me, right, that contingency, but the seller didn't have any other offers. It was more of a high-end property, so there wasn't a ton of buyers in that market to begin with. So being the only offer on the table, they went ahead and took it. Later on down the road, there was a little bit of an issue because of the fact that we were having delays on the first property, which made us ultimately push back closing dates on the second property, and the sellers began to grow impatient, and it was just this big mess, right? Because we had their first one under contract, we were trying to close it, and at the same time we were worried about the sellers of the new property backing out on us. So it's kind of like this limbo, this situation that you don't want to be in, but you know, it can work. In that situation it did work out, but there was a couple of times where we had to, you know, renegotiate, you know, calm the seller down, let them know what was going on. They feared that maybe we weren't being transparent, or they feared that, you know, maybe the deal wasn't going to go through. So that was just kind of one of the things that you need to be aware of, is that when you bring an offer to a seller with a contingency, it is going to seem a little bit weaker. But then again, like I said, if they don't have any other offers, they're more likely to consider it. The next thing we're going to be talking about is a leaseback option. So this is more on the seller side. So let's say you're selling your property and a buyer comes to you, right? And let's just say you have 5 different offers. One thing you can do is reach out to these people and say, hey, are any of you guys willing to give me a leaseback option? Which basically means that once the property closes, they will give you 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it may be, for you to move out, for you to finish closing on your new home and, you know, completely transition out. Now, I know that with certain types of loans, the owner has to take occupancy within 90 days, or if not, it'll change it into like an investor type loan, and it could just cause some issues. So be careful with that. Make sure that the buyer's financing isn't going to have an issue with it, but that is an option, you know. And in a lot of markets, right, not mine to be specific, but in a lot of markets, you know, people are willing to give 6 months, a year of a leaseback option because that's how bad they want the home, right? So take that with a grain of salt. It might work in your market, it might not, but you definitely want to consult with your realtor and talk to them and see, hey, like, is this something normal, or is this something that is going to be a challenge, right? So definitely, if you're in that situation and you're in a position where you have multiple offers, ask them, right? Because you have other options, but if you have a buyer that's willing to give you 30, 60, whatever amount of time to go ahead and move out after you've closed, that could be a big help in the transition from your old home to your new home. Okay, so another option you have is going to be to actually lease your property, right? Rent it out to somebody else. Now, why this is beneficial is because when you're renting the property out, now you're having that income come in, and your lender, right, that's financing your new home can actually take some of that income to help lower your DTI ratios. So when you're applying for a loan, your DTI, or debt to income, is a big ratio that they look at, which factors in, which comes into play in terms of, you know, how much you qualify, if you even qualify at all. So sometimes the lenders will ask you that you either need to sell that home or lease it, so they can count some of that income that you're now bringing in from that property to help you with your ratios. Now, unfortunately, in this scenario, you have to move out, right? It's being rented to somebody else. You either need to get a hotel, Airbnb, stay with family, whatever it may be, but you need to be out of that house. You need to rent it, but it does have the positive side, which is helping you with your income and your ratios. Okay, so moving on to number 2, which I haven't done yet, is a bridge loan. And essentially what this is you're basically getting financing for your new home without closing on your first home, without having to pay a double mortgage, right? So this bridge loan, I would definitely talk to your lenders about it, see if it's a possibility for you. If you bring it up to them, I'm sure they'll be able to give you more information on it, right? I don't want to go too into detail because I don't want to be wrong about it, but I do know that that is an option for you because I have heard lenders talk about it. So essentially in that bridge loan, like I said, you're getting the financing for the new home so you can move forward, and essentially you are using the equity that you have in your first home to kind of help you with that. So keep in mind with the bridge loan, you do have to have, I think it's at least 20% equity of the home, meaning you've paid down at least 20% of it. And then I think it's another 20% that you're putting down into the new property. And that's the way they're able to bridge that gap, right? Because they're giving you the financing because they understand that you have 20% in equity, right? And you're putting 20% down for the new home. And that's essentially how the bridge loan works, right? So you've got to have that equity built up. It doesn't always work for everybody, but it is an option. So definitely reach out to your lender, your local bank, whoever you're using for your financing, and ask them, hey, is a bridge loan a possibility for me? And they can definitely give you some more information on that. Okay, and at the number 1 spot is gonna be my favorite way, just because it's a whole lot easier on not only other parties involved, but also on the client, right? Which is the most important. So the number 1 option is gonna be completely selling your home and then buying, right? And it seems the simplest, but it really is the most effective. And the reason being is because you're gonna sell your home, right? And then you're gonna go ahead and move into temporary housing, whether that be, a hotel, an Airbnb, stay with family, whatever it may be. But you're gonna live in this temporary housing, right? And what the benefit is that, let me just give you a scenario here. Let's say you're under contract, you're gonna sell your home, and now you're like, man, I really need to get under contract quick to find the next home that I'm gonna live in, because I'm either gonna do a lease back option, or I'm gonna try and get a temporary lease from the new seller and get in there early, right? So the issue with that is because now you're feeling pressured. Now you're like, man, I have to find something fast. I have to find something now. And a lot of times what ends up happening is one of 2 things. Either 1, the client ends up settling on a house they don't really love, right? They're not completely in love with it, and they end up settling for something because they felt like they had to make a decision on something. Or B, the whole deal falls apart because the seller says, I can't find anything, right? I can't find something that I really want. So unless the buyer is just willing to wait around because they're obsessed with the home, that deal is more than likely going to fall through. So the reason why I love this is because you sell it, and then once you sell it, you're in your temporary housing, and now you don't have that pressure like, I have to do something now, right? You have the ability to kind of relax and wait for the right property, right? Which is what you want. You don't want that pressure. You want to have the ability to kind of wait and say, all right, I like this property. It's not perfect. I know that, for example, my next home is going to be my dream home, my forever home. So you want to take your time and you want to have that flexibility regardless if it takes you 30 days or 120 days, right? So that's going to be the best thing that I would recommend personally to anybody, just because of the fact that it gives them control, right? It puts them in the driver's seat as the buyer, and they don't have anybody, pushing them off the ledge, so to speak, in terms of finding another property. Because there's nothing worse than settling for a property and you realize it, after closing, you're in the home and you're like, man, I shouldn't have done it. I should have waited. I should have, right? That's the worst. So be cautious, experiment, take a look and really review every single one of these options. See what is right for you. I would recommend, like if I was doing it me personally, that's how I would do it. Unless, I had the ability to get like a lease back option from the buyer and they were really flexible. Because if the buyer said, hey, look, take all the time you need to move out, I'm in no rush to move in, then great. I don't have to do a double move. I can stay back in my home and find the right property for me, and I would do that, right? But in a lot of situations, in a lot of markets, you know, that isn't a possibility. And that's why I say that if you don't have access to certain options like that, you should definitely just sell your home, move into temporary housing, be in control, and, you know, just do things that way. All right, guys, so that's gonna be it for today's video. If you like the video, right? Comment, share, subscribe, do all those things. It really helps the channel tremendously, and I really do appreciate it. Shout out to my guy, Ugly Guy, right here for giving me this nice comment. I really do appreciate it. I am going to be doing my best to bring you guys the latest and greatest content. So if you don't want to miss a video, be sure to click that subscribe button and turn those bell notifications on. That way you are alerted when I drop a new video. Like I said, you want to stay ahead of the curve, never behind, and I'm out.